You know, every day as gamers, we have difficult questions to answer. Do I want to eat the chips right now and risk the gamepad getting greasy? Do I loiter on the character art screen right now or wait till my friends are gone so they don't think I'm weird? And why is it that Wild West robots with a touch of Firefly mentality and A-team spirit haven't been made into a turn-based 2D strategy game? Well, it actually has, on the 3DS in 2015, and Steamworld Heist released pretty glowing reviews, but sadly, no console versions. Until now. So now all of you who didn't own a 3DS can truck around as one-wheeled unicycle gangster-looking robots carrying Uzis and wearing a dead cat hat. These are the things that bring us together as a civilization. So let's see how Steamworld Heist did on consoles, shall we? As always, this is Karak, this is ACG, and if you like my stuff, maybe subscribe. So here's the review for Steamworld Heist for the PS4 and PC. Robot musicians with no mouths, possibly the worst space docking maneuver ever created, and an entire Mickey Rourke full of crazy, split into various personalities and shoved into robot form. Graphics are up first. You know, this continues to be one of those games, one of the few that when trying to explain it to others, you sort of draw a blank, because where do you start? Basically, this is a universe of steam-powered robots traveling the space highways looking for adventure, or, you know, whatever comes their way. A world of bulky space drives, gears embedded in walls, leaking pipes, and skeleton war machines wearing top hats and carrying rocket launchers. In fact, the world design looks like Fallout 3's Megaton City decided to get up, make itself into a level, become a cartoon, and then hammer itself together with rivet bolts. The entire world in Heist has that same mismatch of disused and forgotten items, creaking with a bit of hinted history that makes up much of the artistic representation in the game. Everything looks both awesome and about ready to fall apart at any one moment, and while the mission levels are random in their creation, never once did I see one that didn't make sense within the worldview. But it's funny, because when you sit back and think about it, you'd think there's no chance this could all fit together, but excellent color usage and shared designs across world and inhabitants leads to a look that's decidedly cohesive. But I think this is one of those games where the two-dimensional presentation basically brings a living junkyard to life. Now, when it comes to character designs themselves, the odd mismatch and rustic cog and wheel design still continues to pay off. Led by Captain Faraday, your motley band of crew members and those that oppose you are a unique bunch, from bulky robots with unneeded but an unerring desire to work out all the time, to a Hell on Wheels character that reminds me forcibly of that crappy moped robot in the cartoon mask, but this time cool. The 2D animations are concise, and each character has some little identifiable quirk that's neither too strongly presented nor that easy to miss. Now, while it is turn-based and the game doesn't go on full sexy flash mode at any time, its intelligent use of unique and surprisingly rich color palettes and good strong design shine through here in a way that was completely impossible, for me at least, on the smaller handheld screens. Personally, I think Steamworld Heist delivers in spades and shows that excellent art design can do far more than an extra 2 million polygons in the hands of lesser talented folk. Sound, music, and voice.
There are the diesel-driven royalists, a bunch of oppressive bullies, abusing their power and bleeding the cowbots dry.
And sound is up first. You know, 2D sound can sometimes be a bit hard to get right, as many of the effects and the noticeable returns on hard work may not be as noticeable as a game with 3D sound, but the moment something goes wrong, it all becomes a muddy mess. In Steamworld Heist, some of the peripheral sounds are what I like the best. Grenades bounce ridiculously around the level like the world's worst roulette machine, and you're sort of mesmerized, hoping it doesn't fall on your color, and the whole time it's making this hilarious metal-on-metal tink-tink-tink sound. After about 10 missions with the grenade launchers, I grew to dread that sound, as it usually meant I had missed. Or hearing the skid of once enemy body parts slide past you as one of the enemy succumbs to an attack from behind and his entire being just turns into empty Folgers cans and slides around the nearby area. This has this awesome secondary layered slide effect sound, and it didn't need to be done, but hey, there it was. However, to be honest, I wasn't that happy with some of the weapon sounds. They really have almost no low end to their use, which was surprising as many other effects within the game dive down into the bottom end without any real problem. Also, it's a bit disappointing to hear what sounded like every character using the same movement sounds. Variation, even if it does appear here, seems a bit less pronounced than I would have expected in a 2D game. Hey, that brings us to music. While a mixed bag musically, I actually think it's quite good. Now, some of the more sedate locations and moments of respite as you're hanging out with your assorted band of robot skulldugger doers or exploring a new friendly location sometimes has more synthy vibes that's just barely audible in the background. Yeah, skulldugger doers isn't a word, but I chose it anyway. For me, though, it's the battle tracks and their channeling of particular beat and thrum that remind you forcibly of industry and machines and fabrication and crazy-ass hat-wearing robots. It's the excellent mix that matches the worldview incredibly well and does a good job sonically, packaging the music, with the gameplay. Not a ton here, but I liked what I got. Voice. So, while most of the game is unvoiced, cutscenes are read out to you like an old sci-fi show or radio drama, and they do a good job setting up the situation. They're noticeably campy, and they don't really overstay their welcome. While this isn't a part of voice, I'm going to talk about the robots anyway. Basically, all the robots in the game world speak their own language, and each one has a strange, almost Harvest Moon dialect thing going on, with some sounding like gears being crushed in a metal crusher, and others having an almost sing-song effect, and still others sounding like a vocoder plugged into someone digesting chain-link fence. It's a unique style, but one that pays off here, and in the end probably saved a good deal of money because there's actually a ton of smaller discussions. And guess what that brings us to? Gameplay. So a bit about story first. While there is a current and larger story arc involving a big bad guy, like many of the larger arcs in games and TV shows, the greater arc is basically thrown away versus the episode of the week, or mission of the moment kind of situations that you engage in here. Basically, you're a band of questionably driven, morally flexible pirates. You fly from location to location in the great ship Garbage Scow. You find a mission, then take your ship and forcibly slam it into the other ship and hope your two holes meet up. Dirty jokes aside, it's hilariously fitting because the moment this happens, your motley band of robots spill out into the unknown with nothing but goals, guns, and gumption. Now, the levels themselves may be random, but they are taken from what I think is a well-thought-out series of predictable setups and non-contrary themes, resulting in somewhat similar but always new level design as well, and there's ones that will keep you constantly engaged in what's going on. That's one of the beauties of Steamworld, is that it doesn't really want you to sit still. You're always moving, and in many cases, if you do sit still, wasting away turns, the enemy will figure out a way to dig you out like a little robot tick and stomp you into recycling parts. Additionally, in some levels, if you overstay your welcome, alarm systems turn on and turrets come out of the ceilings. They barely do any damage, but if you get 3 around you, you are in for a world of hurt ASAP. While the levels are different, most of the time the goals are somewhat similar. Sometimes it's to explore and find a particular bad guy and kill him. Other times it's to find a group of bad guys and kill him. And well, I guess it's pretty much always about killing them. It's a serial killing game starring your garbage disposal in turn-based form. I mean, seriously, with a game with heist in the name, they really should have called it Steamworld Killers, who also take stuff off dead bodies. Because here you might lob a grenade at a fat purple electrified robot Christmas ornament, then turn, unleash withering fire with an assault rifle at the face of a robot that, for reasons unknown, decides he needs another metal mask on his already metal head. Then you might end it all with one of your characters power fisting an enemy in the throat until they die. And that's just the first room, so good stuff. Now, characters gain EXP from killing bad guys and making it through missions, which then levels them up and adds more and more skills to those that they can use in battle. And that's good, because apt battle skill use, as well as excellent usage of cover and maneuvering, is the name of the game here. For example, in movement, you have typical 2-step pop. Yellow areas around you mean you can still shoot if you move, and blue ones mean you can't unless you have some kind of skill that allows that. And shooting is simply one of the more enjoyable parts of the game. Since you aim your own guns, there's no chance to hit kind of situations. Much of Heist is played while trying to verify the trajectories of highly explosive ordnance so that it impacts pretty much where a robot mercenary chick's evil cyborg womb would be. And of course, some characters have battle skills that raise the aim and damage of those around them or make them temporarily invulnerable, but one thing you learn early on, as ragtag as this group may look and be, they are far more A-team than X-Men. If you're not working as a team, even on the easier levels, there is a chance you're going to get mulched, so Wolverines need not apply. For example, one boss character has a massive shield, and you can't hurt it at all unless you get behind him and shoot him. You can't do that while standing in front of her, and if you pile up on one side of the screen or move en masse, she's just going to end up switching directions many times, and you still won't be able to remove that shield. It's much more beneficial to use another character and basically stretch out this bad guy's maneuverability by pot-shotting back and forth until you finally get a clear shot because she ends her turn facing the other way. The great thing about Heist is that the variety of victims that you're bringing to slaughter and their unique groupings keeps you constantly guessing. It could be a hard-hitting robot that has a passing resemblance to a palace guard stacked up with 3 massive robots with shields that you have to either get above or behind to kill. Or you may be rushed by a couple up close, while a usually inefficient skeleton bot takes potshots at you. But what was once laughable damage before becomes unmanageable quickly in those situations. Now, speaking of weapons and items, there are tons. Rocket launchers, machine guns, sniper pistols. Yeah, I said that. Garbage grenades, medical items, armor, and an assortment of others. Guns with lasers are much easier to aim because you can effectively know where your ricochets will go, and to a certain extent at least. But my favorite were the grenade launchers, running around launching these things and hearing that airy boom right before the slow motion began and 2 enemies collapsed into separate Goodwill containers was stupidly satisfying. My favorite gameplay aspect here continues to be that bullet ricochet though. It really is a masterful way of changing up the style of gameplay as you skillfully shoot your machine gun rounds off a gantry, across a ladder, off steel tubes, and into the head of a robot gangster. Pretty cool stuff, and it's absolutely vital in the later levels as the game's difficulty climbs to almost insane heights when you start moving that story forward. However, there are a couple problems that sort of annoyed me. The inventory is just very small, and those side missions and purchases extended. Its starting size hampered experimentation more than a few times, and really, in a game like this, at the starting, there is a lot of experimentation. Also, sometimes it can be a bit hard to identify how a shot's going to act. I was a bit surprised about what was going on. My grenade wouldn't go through a bar when I shot it, but on its second bounce into that identical spot after hitting a barrel, it had no problems doing so. And last thing is the mention about death and difficulty, which is talked about a lot. On the higher levels, death can be nut-crunchingly painful, as characters who die don't get the EXP others do, which means you can get a good amount of level variability there. I was okay with it, but I can certainly see why that would bother other people. Fun factor. You know, this thing makes its way onto the PS4 with its original intent well mastered, but with better graphics, more capability, a sharper picture, and excellent control. While I got to spend time with the prior version, I always felt it was artificially cramped, and though awesome, was begging for what we're getting now, which is a move to big screen TVs and consoles. And of course, it also doesn't hurt that the control is spot on. Absolutely loved that. It's a blast to play, and though it is a bit repetitive at the end, the very crux of turn-based strategy is repetition to both learn new things and try out what works. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense at all. And all of that feeds into the learned skills, ability to switch out robot team members between missions, and weapon progression. It's unique, enjoyable, and filled with content. You really can't complain about that. So I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch again rating scale. Of course this is a buy. Here's the thing, this game has a pedigree for days, but we've seen ports coming and going down the line handled inappropriately to the point of almost being unplayable. Steamworld Heist is simply not one of those titles. So as always, if you guys like the video, give it a thumbs up, check out Reddit, maybe tweet it. If you dislike the video, give it a thumbs down, and enjoy the rest of your week. Peace out.